All right, well, welcome everyone to our latest Insight interview for Site Leaders Connect. I'm excited to talk today with John Corippo, who's going to talk about EduProtocols. If you have not heard about this, you're going to want to. This is going to be a great episode. So, John, can you please first just introduce yourself and tell us why you chose to be an educational leader?
Well, let's see. So my story is I'm a formerly disgruntled student. My wife talked me into being an emergency credential teacher back in 1996, and I've really enjoyed being a non-traditional educator. And my background on that is my degree is actually in advertising. And so when I look at a room full of kids, I think, how can I attract more people? That's a very different approach than you're all in my zip code, so tough on you, right? So that's kind of been the synopsis of my career. And then, the last 8 or 10 years have been really focused on like, how do I make all this effort effective? Like all this energy we spend as educators, how do I make it matter? How do I make sure that when kids leave my classroom, they're like, I love this subject area and I can't wait to self-explore more. So that's my whole thing is like, how do we get there?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I love that you have brought to the table some prior experience that's not from education, because I think that's something that can be valuable. So, and just your passion in wanting to make a difference with kids. That's true leadership right there. So today you are going to talk to us about EduProtocols. So could you share some insight you have gained that helped you develop this that can be beneficial to our viewers?
Yeah, well, the short story is this. One day I woke up and I realized that I was basically slaving my career to a textbook or a workbook from GW School Supply.
Yeah, I remember that
Right?
place. Yeah, it's still
And
there.
my real epiphany, or teachers pay teachers, but I did not say that out loud. My real epiphany was driving home from Spring Q in about 2010, and I realized you cannot be a chef and work at McDonald's.
Mm.
So like everything that they do is prescribed. And then I said to myself, oh my gosh, if I'm not making my own stuff as an educator, I'm just a different form of Applebee's, man. Like all I do is what they tell me. And now I become a handouter. I'm a curriculum deployment device. I'm not really an educator.
Or a
I am
professional, right?
Yeah, I'm not a professional, dude. I'm not winging it. I'm not figuring things out. I'm not adjusting to kids. I'm just trying to get through the book. And here's an example. I think this will resonate. You've been in this for a while. I've been in this for a while. Has anybody ever come up to you and shook your hand and said, Catherine, your kids got through the whole book last year, and I can totally tell this year.
No, I have not heard that.
Ever. So
ever.
if that was a thing,
Right.
you would have people going, yeah, Goyette's kids don't get through the whole book. I can totally tell. You never see that. So what can I take from that? And it's anecdotal, but have you ever seen anybody anywhere say, yep, they get through the whole book and it makes all the difference? You don't. And then I watched a movie Lisa Heifel suggested about 3 years ago. She suggested watching Chef. And it's about the story of a guy who's working at a classic steakhouse, and he's lost his career. He's not innovating anymore. He gets in a Twitter battle with a food critic, not realizing there are 2 million people following the food critic who are loving the Twitter. To make a long story short, he loses his career, and he needs to realize that he is not cooking based on passion anymore. He's cooking based on a formula. So then that led to me spotting another Netflix series called Chef's Table. Have you seen that at all?
No, I have seen Chef, but not Chef's Table.
Okay. So that if you like Chef's Table takes it up a notch. I literally had to stop watching it because I'm getting so jacked up about the teaching implications of risking your career, of socially outcast within your community because you want to make a tortellini that's better. And I'm sitting there going, why? Where is that? This is totally missing in education. This aesthetic of I'm going to create a lesson plan that's so ridiculously good, nobody will be able to stand it. Now, we have this going on in professional sailboat racing where a team shows up with a whole new Kevlar design and everybody's like, oh my God. We have this in NASCAR where teams make new weird looking wings that work. We have this in professional sports where people come up with the amoeba defense in basketball. They're craftspeople.
Sure.
And even a deeper dive, Catherine, imagine hiring a band director and saying, here's your band curriculum in a box. Just teach that. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Imagine firing a sports coach at the high school level. This is the way our football team works. And yet in English, science, math, history, there's a bunch of teachers that say, what am I supposed to teach? Because I got nothing. So that is one of the storylines of EduProtocols, which is how do I help people understand that they're not doing anybody favors by getting through the whole workbook, by just being a distributor of worksheets, right? That's the one aspect. And then the other piece is when you tell teachers, hey, you don't need textbooks anymore, they either start foaming at the mouth or crying or emailing for grievances because they're like, dude, I'm not spending the rest of my career doing lesson plans all weekend long, right? So boom. Okay. So there is a magical way to not do that. And that's where the Edgy protocol came up with it, is the idea that what if I have 10 or 12 different techniques that allow me to teach anybody almost anything? What if I had 10 or 11 ways of teaching anybody almost anything? And I got to say this as a what's the word I'm looking for? As a disclaimer. This doesn't work on crazy high level math, and it doesn't work on crazy high level physics. I'm talking really about K11-ish, right? Because if you're in AP land or you're doing calc or trig, some of this applies. It's not because it's a very specialized arena, right?
Sure.
So here's a couple of examples of EduProtocols. You've seen people use Kahoot. I've seen people use Kahoot. Most of them do it wrong. Because this is what I see. This is what I see on Twitter. We're reviewing for the test in Kahoot. Well, dude, why did you even do the worksheets? Or I see him doing the test in Kahoot. Well, if you did a crossword to be able to get to the test, you really haven't changed the flow there. So one of the things that's the easy startup Edgy protocol to explain to people is just the idea of whatever tool I use, whether it's Socrative, Quizlet, Quizzes, Kahoot, GoFormative, you could probably name a couple. Whatever I'm using, I'm going to use it this way. This is the protocol. I'm going to give them the test on Monday with no direct instruction. I'm going to find out what they do know. Kind of like a KWL, right?
Sure.
I'm going to find out what they do know. Well, let's say they get 50% right as a class. Well, that's an F, but the bucket's 50% full.
It's better than zero.
So then it's way better than zero. And now if it's a 15 question thing, I'm really dealing with a universe of 7 or 8 things I got to teach instead of 15, right?
Right.
And now instead of giving them a worksheet or a crossword or fill in the blank, what now I'm going to do is go, oh, you guys, and I'm going to have a quick conversation about the things. And here comes the wrinkle. Boom. Test again. Test. Feedback. Test again. Guess what we're going to do tomorrow, Catherine? Same thing. Guess what we're going to do the next day? Same thing. I've got tons of people on the Edgy Protocols hashtag that they're tracking their class performance. I saw one class, first rep was 29%. Thursday afternoon, they're at 90%. That's the class average. That's not one kid. So technically, this isn't a protocol, but it's a way to start thinking about it. Because if every unit starts with vocab, and then you hand out a bunch of worksheets to get the vocab done, and then you collect a bunch of worksheets and write good job on them, right? Good job, good job, good job. You're not really giving feedback. You're just checking off whether they filled in the boxes. And here's the thing. The kids know darn well that you're not giving detailed input, so they're copying off each other. So boom to that. So boom to that. Okay, so in this model, I've eliminated the worksheet, I've eliminated the crossword, the word search, the direct instruction. I'm just going test, boom, test, boom, test, boom. Now, some of your more agile or learned listeners might say, John, that's pretty low on DOK. And I would argue that's probably a DOK 0.5. Okay. But what it's doing is it's giving that teacher a ton of time back to do other stuff. Okay. So here's a couple of my favorite Edgy protocols, and then we can start kind of moving into the last third, because this is a short format show. So the one that really got me going was 8 parts, which is kind of a classic now, and where we do, now here's the shift. I'm going to do all 8 parts of speech every day instead of 1 per week. So the kids are now getting 30 or 40, 50 reps on all 8 parts. But what's my lesson prep, Catherine?
the same every day.
Same every day. What changes is the hilarious GIF or a
Mhm.
cat picture or whatever. That changes. So the context changes, but not the content. So the kids get faster and faster at the game. Now, my friend Lisa Nowakowski did that for a couple of years over in King City. And then she said, oh my gosh, we can do this with math.
Yep.
So Catherine has math reps going. bit.ly/math reps. And what she's creating is a graphic organizer with 10 or 12 aspects of decimals or division or multiplication. You're doing a whole galaxy of things around exactly one number. Today's number is 85. Let it rip. We're going to divide it. We're going to add a decimal. We're going to do all these things around one number. So what was really cool was she had the exact same experience with math reps that I did with 8 parts. The kids got where they were knocking this thing out in about 8 or 9 minutes a day and not hating it because they were all getting A's. So those are two of like my baselines. Then we go into the Iron Chef, which is the good old jigsaw, except each student makes their own slide. You give them 10 minutes to make basically a Frere model each, boom, boom, boom. And then they present it immediately. They just stand up and talk, and then they sit down, 2 minutes max, boom. So what you're getting is really fast feedback. I've seen teachers that are taking home printed out PowerPoints to grade. Boom. Are you kidding me? Speaking standards and listening standards are standards. When you take
Yeah.
those PowerPoints home to grade, that ain't happening. So then Marlena Hebern has spun a couple of those off. Two of my favorites that she's come up with are Cyber Sandwich, which basically is a spin on the old think, pair, share model, in which if they ask John and Catherine to do shoulder partners and they give us 3 minutes, I will talk to Catherine for 2.5 minutes about what's for recess. The teacher will say, you got 30 seconds. And I'll go, Catherine, we need something. We need something. And then once they answer a few groups, then the third or fourth group starts saying, yeah, that what they said, we love it. So there's no real academic outcome. I love kids talking about academics, but there's no real academics. So in a cyber sandwich, what happens is one kid gets a slide with a link to a video or a film or whatever. It says, take some notes. Second kid in the same slide deck gets a link to the same article or a different article. Take some notes. So let's say they're both about mitosis. Get me 5 or 6 facts about mitosis. Then on the third slide, they build a Venn diagram together. Now
There you
that's
go.
just good teaching right there. And everybody types it. So there's no, we like what group 4 said. You have a nice little Socratic didactic moment where you're given and taken what you guys think. Oh, you guys had different stuff. It's very open and flowing. And then you save about 8 or 10 minutes. Student 1 writes a paragraph about what they learned. Student 2 writes a paragraph about what they learned. Boom. So it's an easy flow. What grade level, Catherine? All,
Any.
right?
Yeah.
All. In kindergarten and first grade, they might be using more pictures for their answers,
Mhm.
but the game is generally the same. They could watch a video with closed captioning on, so that content access is through the roof. Can't you speak into the Google? Yeah, you could say, I learned about ants, and I learned that ants had 6 legs. I can't even type because I'm in kindergarten, but I can talk into my Chromebook. So that's the cyber sandwich. And I think that what's great about that is once you've got that down, if they move you from 5th grade to 8th grade, you're like, dude, instead of cyber sandwiching, U.S. history, we're going to cyber sandwich U.S. government. You just move. So you're working on the craft. And then the last one that's not getting a lot of airplay yet, but I think has a ton of potential is Bucca Kucha. And then if you take the idea of Pecha Kucha, which is certain amount of slides for a certain amount of time, right?
Mhm.
So Bucca Kucha goes like this. You have all the kids open up, wait for it, whatever book they're reading.
What? Not. It's not. It's not
It,
compulsory.
it could be, but it doesn't need to be. And you go like this. We're all going to read 3 pages. Take some notes on character. As you're reading, get me some notes on a character because we're Bucca Kuchaing today. And at the end of that, each kid you put, now there's variations again, but you could put 3 kids in a group. Each kid makes how many slides?
Just one.
And they put 4 things about the character they selected, and then they have like 15 seconds to share. So group 3 stands up, my character is so and so, blah 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 blah, I'm out. Kid 2 is in, my character is blah 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 blah. It's kind of like, think about it this way, it's kind of like flash lit circles.
Yeah.
So instead of this drudgery of I will see your crap at the end of the week, it's like today, Bucca Kucha plot. And we could watch a 30-second commercial and have kids take notes and Bucca Kucha that. Or we could, the permutations are just ridiculous. But what I like is it's quick turnaround. 5 to 8 minutes. Kids are sharing, kids are talking. You're skilling them up like crazy, like crazy. You're like, okay, today irony, today poetic justice, and you're just taking those slices. So that's the idea of EduProtocols. If I can book a Kucha with fourth graders, I can book a Kucha with 10th graders. The game is pretty much the same. If I have 10 or 12 skills like that, at some point I start mixing them. So like there's a guy named Kevin Faramisco down in San Diego. He took the good old Frere model and he had his kids playing Iron Chef style. So they're doing Iron Chef style vocabulary. 2 kids per slide. One kid does example, non-example. The other kid does definition, and then whatever the fourth quadrant is in that case. So you got 2 kids per slide. So they're knocking out their vocab as a class in like 15 minutes. And what do I have to grade, my friends? I have nothing to grade because I see their delivery in real time. So their skills are all going up. We're all moving together, moving forward together. So that's kind of a nutshell version. Did I explain it okay?
Yeah, I think so. So what I really like about it is this is what I try to do is give teachers the least amount of prep as possible for the maximum amount of impact. And so what the EduProtocols do is say, you don't have to learn, you don't have to spend cognitive time as a student learning these new directions, how to do this new, because we do it all the time. All we're doing is changing the content. And so
just
now
changing the content and flying on through. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then when I want to raise the level of difficulty by maybe adding an APA citation, it's just one little wrinkle. And if I want to change something else, it's just one little wrinkle. So I don't get into this scenario where we're doing a teardown. Because one of the things I think, and you have a lot of experience with EL students, but with EL resource kids, all those kinds of students that are the non-traditional academic kids, is what happens with them is they're using up so much processing power every day trying to figure out what the activity is. They're not even getting to the content. And if you think I'm wrong, you see somebody try to use Uber for the first time. It ain't that hard, man. But they're like, what do I do? How do I know where they're going? They're all spun around because they don't know how the Uber app works. And so they're literally unable to get a car to come to them, which once you use it 4 times, you go, psh, let me do it for you, buddy. Come on. And that's what I'm looking for in classes: high efficiency and high quality and on high degrees of completion.
And that's also great for pacing. I know in walking through classrooms, I'm sure, John, you see the same thing, is that teachers that pace quickly, if they get through things quickly, and I'm not saying get through content quickly, no, that is what happens.
Right, and we're not saying rush.
No.
We're not saying that. We're saying that there's a sense of tempo. We're saying that there's a sense of completion, that we're bang, 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 next drill, bang, 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 next drill. If you don't get it perfect tomorrow, we'll try it again, bang, 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 next drill, with a heavy overdose of Bob Ross, which is, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could do that, but that's pretty awesome, which is very different than 14 is D and you're wrong.
Right. Yeah.
14 is always D and you're always wrong. And I think that really, it reinforces to kids that I'm not good at school. And how long before kids say, I'm out. I'm just a shell sitting here.
Yeah. And the EduProtocols actually engage all students too, because you've got them collaborating, you've got them all producing work, not just who's going to raise their hand or who am I going to randomly call on.
It fixes that problem too.
Everyone.
Because
everybody's
making something. Yep.
Yep.
And the kids who have a different perspective or angle on things are now celebrated instead of denigrated. And that's the other thing, is you get a lot of these, oh my gosh, dude, I had no idea that you could hook that to that. You are blowing my mind right now. I can't wait to show this to 5th period, which is never going to happen in a lecture and worksheet model. Never.
Right.
Not ever. The closest you're going to get to that is, my dad knows a lot about the Civil War and this fact is wrong. That's the closest you're going to get to that in the worksheet class.
Absolutely. Well, John, I want to thank you so much for all this insight. I know it was kind of a rush through, but I hope that some of our viewers got some interest in what you're talking about. And what's a great place for them to find out more information about EduProtocols and about this topic in general?
Well, two easy places. One is the Twitter, and you do not have to have an account. You can just go to twitter.com, and there's a little magnifying glass, which means search, and you can type in EduProtocols with a little hashtag in front of it, and you can see what's going on, and it's pretty cool. There's people all over the planet literally just making new stuff and creating. It's like a bunch of test kitchens going on. So my fantasy is coming true, right? Like people are going, if I could do this, I could also put bacon on that and do this. So that's a one great place. Then the other one is Marlena, my co-author. She's made a really cool website, EduProtocols.com, and there's templates there on several of these. We're going to keep adding more, but there's also exemplars of what teachers are doing with real live human children. So we're excited about the idea of being able to take this thing. And again, I use the food scenario. There was a point in time when all of us had not had a craft beer and didn't know what an IPA was, right? There was a point in time when very few of us knew what a Manhattan was, right? So your goofy friend takes you to a bar and he's like, you got to have this drink. It's awesome. And then you go, oh, my life is totally changed now. I need to have this every Friday night. And that the same is true with this approach to protocols. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. I would encourage everyone to definitely follow John on Twitter. Check out #EduProtocols. Go ahead and go to our siteleadersconnect.org page to follow all of our awesome educational leaders that are on that searchable database. And thanks again, John, for spending some time with us. And do you have any one last piece of advice before we close out to our viewers in getting started with EduProtocols?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to go back to where we started. If all you've got is the textbook, if you don't have something besides teaching, you really need to sit down and really think about what your career is going to be, because you're going to wake up 20 years from now and go, hey, I just spent 20 years giving kids worksheets, and I'm not sure that's why people get into education.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, John. Thanks to everybody. And we will catch you next time.